Hey, what's up you guys? It's Olivia. So this is part 2 of my series Story Time on my path to choosing naturopathic medicine. If you haven't watched part 1, the link is in the bio. I recommend doing that first so that you have context for this video. This is part 2. I've come home now from undergrad. So the first thing was I wanted to find a job in medicine, either a scribe or an MA or something like an EMT, anything, just anything where I was exposed to the field. So first I went on Indeed. I applied to 50 different jobs. I'm not exaggerating. I kept track, 50 different jobs, all with unique cover letters that I wrote. I spent weeks doing this. I think the whole month of majority of May, all of May. I graduated on May 14th. So all of May, and then I know all of June I spent trying to find a job. Just wasn't getting anything. I wasn't even getting calls back. I wasn't even getting interviews. It was really cutthroat, and I had a lot of experience. I've already worked in heavily at Seattle Children's Research Institute. Like, I had a good enough experience background for you know, a beginner level job. At the time, I had decided from the advice of my close friend to go to her physician. So I made an appointment, I showed up. I got to meet Dr. Shelby, and I was like taken aback. I thought she was like 20 something. She was like so pretty. I was like, how is this doctor so young? And she asked me if I knew what naturopathic medicine was, and I was like, no. And she explained kind of the gist of it, and we'll get into that more. But so I have this appointment with Dr. Shelby. It was 75 minutes long. I've never spent that long with a physician in my entire life. She wanted to know everything about me. I told her my whole life story. I told her about how my dad died on 9/11. She cried with me. I mean, I've never had a physician cry at my story before, and she made me feel like my story and my life was beautiful, and she put it into perspective in a way that I had never seen before. And I left that appointment. I mean, we talked about my health, of course, and she made this whole beautiful plan and had prepared all these tests that she wanted to run before seeing me next. But I left her office that day in just tears of like utter joy. I called my mom and I was like, I know what kind of doctor I want to be. A week later, she calls me personally, and I was like, oh crap, like I'm dying, because by then I'd already run a few tests, and anytime a physician calls you, right, you assume there's something wrong with you. And no, she was calling me to ask me to come to the clinic for a job interview, because in our appointment I had mentioned how I was really struggling to find a job. So I of course was like, holy shit, yes. At that point I was working at a store called Aritzia, which is my favorite store still, but it wasn't in the medical field, obviously. So of course I was like, holy shit, like yes, I will be there in an hour. I jumped in the shower, got ready, zoomed there. Sure enough, there she was, Dr. Shelby and Christina, and they were waiting for me in the waiting room. I sat down and we had a whole interview, and they asked me like the best questions ever. There were still a few other employees that were working there at the time, but one had just moved to Alaska, and they were just bopping around with employees at the time. So I basically started working there like a few days after my interview. They hired me on the spot, and I was just so excited. I was like on top of the world excited. So I was starting my new job. I was still working at Aritzia, and I was also starting my biology series at the University of Washington. And so there was a lot on my plate at the time, but I was just like really just wanted to be busy. I think heartbreak does a lot to you, and for me, what I wanted to be doing after that point was just to be busy. And so when I got to the clinic, it was a lot different than the way it is now. There was like very little organization. The person who was in charge at the time was kind of just like all over the place. The supplement inventory was just a mess. I didn't know how to work it at all. Our system, there were no systems really in place. And I was learning from the bottom up. I knew nothing about how to work the front desk, how to do anything, how to do vitals. And Dr. Shelby taught me everything. I would make mistakes and she would meet them with compassion and care and an opportunity for learning, and I was so grateful. And yes, she was hard on me, but I just really wanted to demonstrate my desire to be there and do my best. And I always used my intuition with things. And mind you, like, this practice was an integrative practice. I should have explained this earlier. This is an integrative practice, meaning providers from all different backgrounds and specialties work under the same roof on similar patients, so often on the same patients. And the point of integration is that the patient is getting, is being seen by physicians from all different specialties, ultimately like optimizing their health. And so we had a nurse practitioner, psychiatric nurse practitioner. They did the medication management for a lot of patients. We had an oncologist, a naturopathic oncologist, Dr. Standish, who's so dope. She saw late to end stage cancer patients. And then there's Dr. Shelby. She's a midwife and naturopathic doctor. So we killed it. We freaking killed it, and had to say goodbye to some employees. It was a time of huge growth. A lot of stuff was going on. A lot of change was being had. We were modifying systems. I was creating systems. I was doing everything from changing phone systems, updating EHRs, transitioning EHRs, to vitaling, to scribing, to patient coordination of care, scheduling, all of that stuff. Anything front desk, you name it, I did it. But the job was so rewarding, and I felt like I was more than an employee. I was a part of a family. I was learning so much every day about the medical field and realizing with every day, like, yeah, I belong here. This is where I belong. So my career at the clinic was awesome. And at the time, I was still very much pursuing a field in allopathic medicine. So in other words, I wanted to be going down the route of MD, DO. In my mind, I was a surgeon still from undergrad, having done hundreds of operations, and really honing my skill, my hand, my dexterity, and my precision with surgical techniques. I really like procedures, so still was pursuing that despite working in an integrative clinic. I think my general vibe was like, I like that it made me more of like a well-rounded candidate, coming from a different specialty and working in a different specialty with practitioners from all different medical modalities. I think in the eyes of any admissions should and would appreciate a candidate like that. So despite being around a lot of influence from naturopathic doctors, I still was pursuing my route of MD, DO, and they completely respected that and wanted that for me. There was no like subliminal, pressure to choose naturopathic medicine. And I think that touches on one point a lot of people don't understand about naturopathic medical doctors. I think they think that they're all trying to shove naturopathic medicine down everyone's throats, and that's just not true. I worked there for 4 years, and eventually I earned my medical assistant certification and was able to do more hands-on stuff. So I started doing blood draws, and I started doing pushes of B12 and glutathione. I started doing injections. I was wearing a lot of hats at the clinic. On the website, they called me the jack of all trades, because I couldn't just be the medical assistant. I was like also the medical coordinator and the front desk and blah blah. So I was given the privilege and the opportunity to wear a lot of hats. It's not me like boasting about this. It was a privilege and an honor and an opportunity to be entrusted with a clinic. So still, I'm just going down this route. Got into a post-bacc program that I was really excited about, and that's a formal post-baccalaureate program, meaning they have a pre-made program for post-baccs in or pursuing a degree in the medical field. So that's really attractive for someone who just wants less work in having to schedule classes and get on track, and they guarantee that you're done in like a year and a half. So I did that and it was awesome. So now I'm doing that. I had quit my job at Aritzia and I was just working basically full-time at the clinic, and I was a part-time student. So I'm taking like Gen Chem 2, Bio 2, I was taking calculus and genetics, and then eventually organic chemistry 1 and 2, blah blah. So it was a really good setup for me. I was certainly very exhausted, but it was a good kind of exhaustion. I was just motivated. I wanted to do good work, and I was somehow managing to do everything and juggle it well. I think it was like, it kept me on my toes. I would go to class in the morning, I'd get my little piece and I'd get to study after class and do my thing there, and then I'd go right to work and I'd work until like 8 or 9 p.m, come home, study a little bit, go to bed, repeat. And that really worked for me. I'm not gonna say it was easy. It was not easy. On top of that, I was shadowing, and I was shadowing other physicians, usually at UW Medical Center. And what else was I doing? And I was doing a lot of volunteer work with Roots, among many other organizations. So I was really just getting ready to start the admissions process for an MD-DO school. I had already made my list of schools that were basically would be accepting of more or less my background and my values. I was really digging into all of the schools in the US for what I wanted. I'd already completed way too much research. I did not need any more research behind me. So really all I was getting was shadowing hours, clinical practice, and volunteer hours done, which was cool. So, and then I was preparing for MCAT. So at that point, I was supposed to be taking my MCAT around now. So it's what, March, May, June. I was gonna be taking it this June, which now I'm glad I'm not, because we're in a pandemic and MCAT's keep getting pushed back. So shout out to everyone having to go through that right now. But know that the admissions of different medical schools are recognizing that, and so take that positively. Anyway, it was about this time last year, so 2019 springtime, my really good friend Sahar, who is a naturopathic medical student, called me up and she was like, hey, are you free on Wednesday? And I was like, yeah, why? And she was like, come by, I want to introduce you to someone. You have to hear this guy talk. He's so cool. And I was like, hell yeah, I'm down. So I go to this talk and meet up with Sahar. We're like, yay, exciting. She's running it. She's so dope. She's so amazing. And then this man named Dr Abdullah shows up, and he just talked about naturopathic medicine and his practice and his background and his experience and the patients and the medicine and the modality. And he worked in the ICU for like a decade and then pursued naturopathic medicine through Bastyr University. And I was sitting in this circle of naturopathic medical students, mind blown. I was crying because I was scared of the reality that maybe the path I'm pursuing right now isn't really me. I've worked so hard to get to this point in the application process, and like, what if it's not me? And so and he's talking, and so I go to him after, hoping for some advice about where I'm at, and I just feel so incredibly lost, but like simultaneously so inspired by this man. And I've already had 3 years working next to naturopathic medical doctors, and so I know a lot about the field, actually. And so I'm standing there and I asked him, like, what do I do? This is where I'm at. And of course, being the ND, as all NDs are, without even the slightest amount of pressure to tell me to do ND, it's amazing. I've never met an ND who said that to me. He told me, he sat down and so gently told me, a lot of times you need to take a look at your ego. And your ego says, I mean, everyone, we need an ego, but sometimes your ego gets too big. And when it's too big, ego says, I can do it, I can do it. And you need to take a look at that. If your ego is too big and you're pursuing MDDO, is it because you're trying to prove something? Or do you actually want to be doing surgery? Do you actually want to be doing the allopathic medical modalities? What's your truth? What would make you happy? And I knew in that moment, in that drive home, like my whole world was being flipped upside down. My ego was in the way. My ego was trying to prove to younger Olivia, who kept being told that she wasn't very smart, that she can do it. I sat down with everyone in my, like all of my people, I sat down with all of my people and had really, really hard conversations about this. This is like one of the biggest decisions I've ever made in my whole life. What specialty you choose is critical. I mean, I think, in my opinion, you take whatever you need from wherever you learn. But the way in which you're taught to practice is everything. And so when you're sitting there saying, I want to be a doctor, you have to look at what would make you happy in your practice. And that's what I had to do. I went into therapy and I had to do a lot of work on myself to get to the point where I could admit, and I'm saying admit cautiously, that I was an ND and not an MDDO, because deep down I think I'd always known it. The way I always dreamt of practicing isn't possible in an MDDO practice unless you go private, which is much more complicated in that specialty compared to an ND. And I want to be able to dig deep with patients. I want to talk about the soul. I want to do the more unconventional methods of healing, so to speak, or for lack of a better word, because that's what I've always been good at. Strangers, I'll be on a bus or something, a plane, and they'll open up to me about everything, their belief about God, the death of their sister, their spirituality, their gut dysbiosis. It's not a coincidence. And yet, after all of those conversations, I notice a consistent pattern with people. And again, without tooting my own horn, it's something that you notice about yourself that you have to be so self-aware of to pick up on. And that is that they would leave me looking lighter. They left me seeming better. Moments and discussions that I'm not gonna learn in an OR. That's what I'm good at. That's my gift. I'm so grateful to all of the extraordinary moments in my life that made me aware of this truth, because if I continued going down the path I was going, I know I'd be a phenomenal surgeon. I know that. I've already proved that to be true. But would I be happy? And my path just really realigned at that moment. It was like divine timing almost. A weight was lifted off. I felt like, a few years ago, like 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, I had finally decided I wanted to be going into medicine, and that was a huge decision. And then 2 years later, I was like, holy shit, I'm not going to be doing conventional medical route. I'm so much more than that. There's a lot more layers to my abilities. There's a gift here, and if I don't use it, I would be doing my future patients a huge injustice. There was so much doubt. That was what was shadowing my ability to recognize this and my ability to choose this decision with full confidence. It was the doubt about the field of naturopathic medicine. That was the hardest part for me. It was the doubt. It was sitting in the doubt. I come from a place where if it's not 0.05% significance, it doesn't count. So at this point, I haven't overcome my doubts. I still had the doubts. I'm sitting in doubt, but my heart is in the right place. I had acknowledged ego and its role in my my decision making, and I had firmly chosen at this point, so it's like summertime last year, 2019, I had firmly chosen to pursue my degree in naturopathic medicine. So, but I still had to complete, you know, I was finishing up my organic chemistry series, and I was still working. And so now we're coming into this year, and I had amazing summer because I felt free, I felt liberated with my decision, and I was learning. And then I came into this year, and I'm still sitting in doubt. I'm still, you know, like a 2-year-old testing it, and I'm testing the depths of naturopathic medicine, and I'm really susceptible to what people say, and I'm susceptible to the hate and all of that, because what I'm doing, like I said, is inherently risky. But I know, and from knowing so many students in naturopathic medicine, you sit in the doubt in the first year and you're like, what the hell? And then by the second year, you're so into the sciences, it doesn't fucking matter what specialty you're in, it seems. You're so into the sciences, you're so into the learning that you're focused on the medicine. And that's really what's at the heart of all of this. This is what's at the heart of all of our decisions to pursue some kind of specialty in medicine. It doesn't fucking matter what we call it, because at the end of the day, our intentions are so true and so pure and so genuine, and it is to help, it's to heal, it's to use our gifts to make the collective consciousness, the collective being better. I'm at the point now where it's like, I don't care what I have to call it, because whatever I do will be good. All I can tell you is to wait and see my practice. And I'm not going to sit here and argue with you after I've spent 4 years in the field. I'm just not. The proof is in the practice. Go dig further if you don't see it yet. Time is like really out. I've talked way too long. I want in part 3 to really dig into my understanding so far of naturopathic medicine, naturopathy, what I can expect at school, what I'm excited for, my passions, and my hope for my future practice, which are all really important and I'd like to document. So part 3 is definitely a thing. It's coming. And I think that will be pretty much it of this Storytime series. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up, like, subscribe, you know the deal.